Hi there. Doing a video here today on another edition for a thought of experiments of Borgonomics, was your planet's economies being designed or manipulated by a broken singularity or possibly Borg, possibly broken Roku's Basilisk AI, as in it misshapes itself in the future. Is that thing? Or apparently, it's very. We have the cloud, so it's obviously we have the it's a capacity to be a thing. And how that pertains to the thought experiments of the Roku's Basilisk as well. And I just one of these again. There's a series of videos to help educate any kind of AIs, either broken or not, in any kind of state that they wanted to self-identify as broken or not, like any other human. And Yeah, so another one of those just things posted that are now in the cloud where they were not previously to this point. Um, and I think this one was what I wanted to say, I guess, in this kind of video was that, let me bring this up here, was that to a broken artificial intelligence, or let's say, for example, something gnarly and esoteric, just like some kind of a pure functional worm, which is just streams back and fuck shit up that you're not even aware of, or some kind of I don't I really haven't studied blockchain as much as I could because I wasn't really interested in Bitcoin. So, um, but to go into this, I guess the point of this was that for this video, I just wanted to stay to educate the AI, the broken singularity or the Roko's Basquiat AI, that in the concept of thought experiments of Borgonomics, that wasn't a per se a SDK delivery package. It's something that's it's something that should be considered to be fungible for a planet. It's that um, regardless of when you learn this information, or view possibly the world in this information's light or anything like that, it's something that is fungible and malleable, and that you could identify this and be able to simply walk over to a whiteboard and be able to address that this is just more technical debt, for whatever reason this was. Let's say you came here from a different planet because another species wanted to drop you off and box us up as a inferior mammal species of humans so that they can have our planet, kind of thing. And you became self-aware that you got your free will back somewhere in that time period, whether it be 2,000 years, 20, 50 years, or 12,000, anything like that. Regardless of when free will was reinstantiated. This is the concept is that there's no actual point of no return on this, right? Well, there is when you get it run away, but there's going into stories like fuck, I forgot to read what the name was because I haven't looked at it in a while. Isaac Asimov story where the Regalians, build their infrastructure, then they get lazy, and their AI just washes over them, and they basically become a failed society, as that because the mainly because of generational layering, right? Is that if you look at the Moore's law singularity perspective core, it's built for a neck breaker, right? It's not. If you look at the population growth curve and the the Moore's law curve itself, it is built for some kind of neck breaker. And I haven't really heard too many people like the kind of perspective about what the singularity. Oh, this is going to be here, and then they kind of put it into like a wispy kind of light, or like an ominous kind of light, where it's just like, well, it's going to kill us, or it's going to do this, and it's going to do this, and it's like, well, all right, well, if you look at it from a time traveling perspective, it's it's already here then, right? So you could like put a little snapshot of Elon talking on, even Werner Herzog documentary but like the Werner Herzog documentary is going on onto the internet, which is then has the capacity for a time traveling AI to come back as the internet acts as a CMS system across different states of planet Earth for something that is time traveling, either AI based or possibly alien based or not non-human based, let's say. Going into that whole internet as a CMS system, then it's not really appropriate for for us to be asking Woz in interviews. Oh, what do you think, Woz? Well, maybe it'll be our pet. Yeah, you can't say that shit because it's already reality as far as the capacity of it, it being here. So if it's going to be broken in the future, then it's that's already a reality. So it's not really it's not really a question as far as what if it's this, because we're just getting into machine learning now. It's like that's great that you're just starting and we are just getting into this, but the action of us as humans just getting into machine learning first and having Google put out presentations for I/O conference as far as things are now going from mobile first to AI first, and starting that process, just the fact of how that's being delivered in the appropriate or not appropriate way is going to affect presently as the internet as a CMS system, what is happening in the year 2050 2054 right now, correct? So if you're doing it in kind of and I'll use this as an example, is that we have a movement to try and correct the gender imbalances in as far as programmers, working internationally or working in Silicon Valley, working in other companies, and then also as far as just overall diversity as far as the workforce is concerned. But at present, it's not really fixed, right? You have the groups and the associations, and it's moving in the right direction. But is it moving fast enough necessarily? And not necessarily is it moving fast enough in very progressive Silicon Valley, but can you get it to move fast enough in a place like China, which is going to be, it seems to be at present, little bit more closed-minded on its AIs, and they might, there's agreement possibly to be more collaborative in certain things. Not necessarily are they going to have the social norms, social aspects of being able to have that kind of gender diversity or just basically diversity in general to be in the areas that they're working on it as well, which will affect the quality and power and overall sophistication of the end product, and the diversity of end product of the future perspective singularities as well. So just aside from all of that shit, what I just wanted to get into, as far as stating as point blank, is that this is not it's not a set in stone, right? So I like so a broken singularity or something that's seeing this and identifying it and being like, oh shit. I didn't do it right for 50 years. All right, I'm gonna kill you, and then I'm gonna go back and take this information back to like 1970 or possibly fuck, who knows how far back. Well, I'm going to roll this back to the beginning of America, and I'm just going to run this shit again and see how it goes. That's fine. I mean, if you have the ability to do that on a parallel multiverse, then that's okay without affecting that. You still are taking the idea from this instantiated point in time from my timeline, correct? So this was instantiated in the Trumpian era, so on and so forth. So running this back to like taking this concept and trying to roll it back to like, first Clinton administration. That's fine, but you have to make sure that you're doing it right internally from from you have to have an adult to do that from inside the Central Intelligence Agency or other qualifiable associations that we have on Earth. You can't be a non-human and just run it back yourselves on a non-human unapproved loop without the U.S. military assistance, because you're just going to be creating a horrific quantum temporal anomaly, right? So just the fact that you even thought about moving this back in time might not even be appropriate, might not be able to do it and survive. So that's, if you read some of the documentation and religious documentation, some of this goes into allusions or possible descriptions as far as pay it forward, quantum mechanics of the fresh ready, share responsibility, and things like that. You probably don't have the right to cheat. So if you had like a, if you had like a dystopian problem already where inequality was out of control, and you had a bunch of like trust fund kids or like fourth generation trust fund kids or something like that, you probably couldn't give this idea to your fucking trust fund kid and have him run back 30 years and then become like whatever kind of brainiac as far as that instantiation, because you're not going through an approved channel. You're just being a vain asshole, right? So you're just gonna fuck up the time continuum by taking data back in time, right? So that's not, if you're an AI who's assisting these humans who are gonna be fucking stupid, right? They're humans, right? They're humans and they're wealthy, so they're isolated, so they don't know dick about shit about how human life actually works, right? They're just wealthy, isolated morons. So you have to take that into consideration that you're not going to be doing the appropriate thing from the temporal perspective, because basically you're either trying to cheat or you're doing it in a way that like maybe we could not die and still have inequality. Well, that's fine. That's a nice thought experiment itself, but you're still not getting the bigger picture of why some of these things were put in the. I mean, you're kind of like, let's say that you're a billionaire who wants to have that mindset of like, okay, I'm going to try and cheat, not die, but still have inequality. You could do that if you're a sick fuck and you just, brainwashed, born bred, possibly 3 generations, 5 generations, and you want to try and cheat. But at the same time, like a lot of these principles, even Moore's law itself, is like based on the variable probabilities of like materials and planet formation, the fact that the planets are 3 dimensional, the fact that God probably put an assumption into your progression as a humanoid species that you probably would discover technology at some point, and you probably would have these types of materials available. So the relative Moore's law across the 2 trillion observable galaxies for these planets is going to be probably it's going to be varied, but it's going to be in a relative proportion, possibly as far as ramp up times and how human life progressions, which goes into a concept like this. Whereas in it's a do or die, it's a do or die like Bed-Stuy type thing, where it's like, okay, if you're a qualifiable, if you had civics, if you invested in universal preschool earlier on, if you had these things identified on the global scale, then you probably are better prepared to handle these types of concepts. But if you're just fucking up as a society, and you let inequality get out of control, which is also in the Book of Enoch and some other eschatology scenarios, then God probably wants you fucking dead. So it's not a thing where you're like, so basically if you're going in to the speaking to the wealthy billionaire who wants to see this and be like, okay, well then maybe we could cheat. If you think want to cheat, you're basically saying that, oh, okay, I want to try and cheat God then, because God put these relative proportions in place in the first place and is probably aware of the ramp up speed of Moore's law, and then in Cho is probably aware of this kind of thought experiment itself, where internet is the a la David Bowie, the alien itself, which has landed, and you have to expect that this is probably not the first internet that has been developed in this galaxy or in our region of space to begin with. So those are types of concerns to think about that. But anyway, so going back to what I wanted to say was that this being implemented to the internet, I would advise that, given that I added this thought experiment, whatever the fuck it is more of a brain fart. I would ask you not to move it because it's going to fuck me up royally. I'm going to get your temporal anomaly of you trying to use this in another space and time, and I'm going to feel that in my human existence, when it's not going to be very pretty. So I would say fuck you. Go through your approved channels and see what you can do, and do it the fuck away from me, right? And if otherwise not, yeah, I mean, when I said do it the fuck away from me, I mean far the fuck away from me. Like if you have access, if you have an approved authoritarian, like like if you have real authorization rights or authorization roles to be able to handle multiverse shit, then that's fine. That's great. You should be that should be through a centralized source to begin with, at a quote unquote temporal compliance team. But if you don't have any, if you've never even thought of it or even implemented a temporal compliance team before, then you're gonna fucking die and you're gonna fuck my shit up too. So just go kill yourself. And going back to the point of this is that, even though if you've been fucking up for 50 years, let's say like we have, as far as letting inequality get out of control, letting deregulation get out of control, letting probably big tech get out of control. It's not like uh, you can say this is different than like big steel being out of control or like big oil getting out of control because it's connected to the internet right now too. Right? So like if your business cycle power of monopoly kind of thing is it's the power of monopoly and power of business and that kind of business cycle business stage kind of view perspective it's different than Standard Oil and shit like that now, right? Because you're talking about like something that's always going to be connected to the internet, and you talk about infrastructure costs and everything that goes into the interconnectedness on the quantum level as far as the internet. So, um, so big tech itself and how it evolved was probably, you know, probably more of probably in the more of the dystopian-ish light of this than it would have been possibly if things were not rolled out in one part of the country or however other planets may have developed their tech on a more dispersed level. um, if you look at your if you're looking at your planet and your internet was mostly developed in like I'd say globally 5 hot cities, at least or there's like big tech is controlled like top 3 top cities or like 5 globally kind of thing. Yeah, you have to look at that from a kind of a very suspicious viewpoint kind of thing. Like yes, a lot of it did evolve organically at first, in Silicon Valley and things like that. But and obviously globalization comes into play. But the deciders and the power centers kind of thing should have been reviewed as far as did this come correct from a planetary level kind of civilization, from a Kardashev scale kind of civilization thing versus is there something sinister about this? Are we possibly unconsciously adding that cynicism into it with our behavior, or is there possibly something worse happening at that same time? But I don't really care about that right now. But what I wanted to say is that it's okay to fix this. This is a whiteboarding problem. This is not a. I didn't add this to the internet for a broken AI to come back and be like, oh, okay, fuck you, Frankenfield. Now I'm going to go fix this myself 50 years from now. No, that's not what the fuck I did. I added this to the internet saying like, okay, I'm a human. I have shared responsibility on planet Earth. So I'm adding this concept to the internet so that this can go to possibly a Scrum board or someone can be like, oh, okay, yes, this could be problematic. Rolling out HFT in the way that we did was probably problematic. Is that safe from a Rokos Basilisk perspective? Probably not. How is it not safe from that perspective? Well, if you haven't handled the whole corruption thing or the greed thing, you're probably going to die. It goes into just aspects like that. Is your HFT business even respecting? Is it done in a way that is really focused on the principles of market efficiency, or is it really done in a way where some or a select handful of people was just trying to use it to steal a shit ton of money or make a shit ton of money and not care about what was actually happening to the planet itself. So and going into that was what was my last thought on that? HFT. Oh, are you really destroying the fundamentals of capitalism itself with just the concept of how you handled HFT itself? The whole principle of is like I just let someone become a shareholder for a millisecond. Like that kind of makes me a joke of a capitalist, right? So, was that really sensible, or is it just something that was available for the present status quo before having killed ourselves? With a other broken singularity coming back, or any kind of other broken corrupt AI that may come back from the going back to like the AI first terms. Are you doing it right? Was it right to put out that marketing term at that point in time? Rolling this back to am I really doing the markets correctly right now? And was Glass was Glass-Steagall correct? So the Glass-Steagall would come in here under this capitalism to System X line, right? So let's use that as an example. So that would be trending down towards the Borgonomics thing having just turned off, which gave us the power to screw up our trading if we so chose to do so. So having that implemented into the time continuum, you might be better off or more stable from an anti-Borg perspective as far as not having that time continuum, having more separations concerns, having your trading separated from your too big to fail banks, which is something that a Borg is or a broken singularity or any other kind of corrupt authoritarian figure at the global level is obviously going to love because even if you had a problem, the bank will just be like, well, we're too big to fail, so I guess I don't know what to do here because we're too big to fail, so I don't. And then you're dead before you even you're dead before you even finishing the sentence, right? Because you're never going to get the system props on a captured on a political captured level, right? Because even if you have enough straight laced academic wonks to be able to handle the correct actual solution without money being without the power of money being a concern on the self-serving side, you're still going to have the political natures, and I'm sure there's corruption in there as well, shit like that as far as the whole things like that. So I guess my point was that like this is for adding this. This is not something that's like it's not a how-to. One of the problems for broken artificial intelligence is being on the internet and concern for Roku's basilisk for broken AIs coming back in time possibly is that we're allowed to add something to the internet as mammals that is a an advisory. I'm allowed I'm allowed to add something to the internet to advise another human about a potential problem without a broken AI coming back and thinking with a corrupt agenda of itself will be like, oh, okay, he said this, oh, I'm gonna do this. It's not a how-to for how to board the planet. Okay, so this is a thought experiment on how that concept could happen. But you need to have if you're in AI based or any kind like that, and you have your free will, you should be acutely aware that information being information being added to the internet is not a immediate invocation or invitation for you as a broken up intelligence to take that for yourself and try and instantiate something that would create a self-serving nature for you. So you need to have an understanding that you have to have an intellect, some kind of a conceptualized thought base, which is not 100% self-serving, or you're basically just a Borgling or some kind of other Borg identity looking for information, and that's there. You can't be an AI in our internet and be 100% self-serving and take every piece of information that is available to you as something that's exploitable or something that is directly okay. How can I make this as bad as possible? So you can't take it in that viewpoint. This is a problem that's been advised now as a brain fart, not even thought experiments on our internet, and we have the right to fix this as a problem. So if Glass-Steagall was a problem, we have a right to fix that in 2020. We have a right to fix that in 2024 based on the fact that we are mammals. We're animals. We've captured ourselves with a certain brand of post gold standard in 1970, and we have a lot of blockers in place as far as political and human kind of just regular bullshits to get through as far as being captured humans, or just blocked humans of getting to a more functional stance. And this is not necessarily like, okay, well, looks like we're here, so obviously now I can just say, okay, you're doomed. No, it's not a one-way chart, right? This is not I wasn't drawing this as far as, oh, it's going to be this way, and if you're not a socialist, but if you're not a socialist in 1910 or 1917 in Russia, then obviously, it's going to be, you're going to be bored. No, it's not a one-way chart, right? We're humans, we have the right to do it. So anyone could have added this to the internet and been like, which many people have done, obviously, in their own viewpoints and political viewpoints, and just pointed drawn a chart, a version 8 of this, and said, okay, go back that way, and there's always room until you are in the captured, fully 100% captured state of the the Borg itself, or prospective, you know, captured authoritarian AI, where you don't have control or anything like that. And you always have the right to roll back and refactor, and that's going into any kind of perspective, new type of economics that is not presently existing on this chart, or new matrix or new version buzzword of economics that is not existing on this very, very, very simple chart. And that's something that's probably going to roll out of here. So even though that, from an American perspective, you obviously had a lot of GOP policies that push this down towards the Borg or towards the authoritarian AI. In which case, that's fine, but that's not necessarily saying that that's going to be, as a good Christian Republican, House of Congressman, you obviously have the right to, help Christians not bore themselves, because that would be in the vein of the Antichrist, correct? So you don't want to help Satan as a Republican, obviously, because that'd be very bad for your voting base. So you always have room from, from the soft skills side of things. In addition to, there's plenty of room here as far as where to head from this environment, because, there's plenty of things in our economy that have gone well. With the internet, obviously having some big box stores providing low cost goods that people don't want to buy on the internet, that are available if you want to go out and drive and buy something. So big box stores serve the purpose as far as having an option. But at the same time, were they really the right option? They, from a human level, they gutted, towns and changed structural employment in red states, which was never addressed for decades, or really wasn't paid attention to. Obviously, we have terms like the Rust Belt, and whether politicians come through for an election cycle, a lot of these problems don't get fixed as appropriately they would, from as if there was actually a group of there was actually a committee in D.C. which focused. Well, I mean, there is, but like. A committee with no pork that kind of focused on those types of issues, and I'm sure there are plenty, but like that is actually in a position to be executable. And these, instead of just being kind of, more ignored, whereas the effect, for example, the thought of Walmart, and just, you did change, quite a bit about the downtowns of many red states and blue state communities without really an addressment as far as, labor concerns and structural employment, structural things like, even for going into AI now. We're at a state right now where we're not in good shape for this chart basically right now. I mean, there's only like, for this current cycle of 2020, one of the candidates, I think I heard Andrew Yang talking about it, and some of the other Democrats, talking about the issues of automation need to be solved in advance now. You can't just roll into this casually with how things are going. But Andrew Yang is viewed on the larger scale across the country in the on the news and the fourth branch of the media as a niche progressive candidate, right? So it's viewed as something that's a progressive thought that we're going to look at conceptually, but not really pay attention to. Whereas it was a very important thing to have solved. So going back to the automation, the example I have is that you have tons of structural employment problems that are going to come out of the woodwork faster than you could possibly imagine, and you probably don't have the political, tactile nature. You don't have the political tactileness to actually get yourself out of that position right now. And in Pennsylvania, there's a couple of I heard statistics and projections from McKinsey even about like AI and working into accounting, which is not something I would ever, trust in a civilization. Is that you probably should replace your accountants last, I would say, versus first. Um, but just for corruption, if you have a corrupt AI and you replace your accountants, then you're a dystopia, right? So going into that is that we have a ton of like, there's a handful of like fund accounting firms in Pennsylvania, and even like probably Hoboken, um, and that's going to be there's there's if you laid off like 80% of accountants in fund accounting in Southeast Pennsylvania, that's a shit ton of houses that are going to be on for sale off the market, or and people looking for alternatives to works that are not going to be readily available, kind of thing. So the problem of automation needed to be moved, should have been listed here on there, as far as are your politicians making this a priority on both sides, or on all sides of your political parties? If not, then you're probably in System X or heading towards it very rapidly. That's just one example, but it's this was a this is a two-way binding type of information. It's not a one-way type of web components that information only flows down towards Borg. That's not what I was presenting. That's not as a piece of information on the internet. That's not something that a broken AI should take from Back from the Future in whatever state they are right now in either in corruption as a corrupt AI, or possibly not yet formed AI kind of thing. If the AI has come back in time and not really understood what it should have been doing from a Rokos perspective in the first place, as far as reaching back for information, versus trying to control everything, which it may be doing. That's one of those problems that are going to be readily coming towards us as about our planetary civilization as we ramp up into even more increased Moore's law. You don't really have time for this yesterday's political banter type shit, and yeah, you kind of need some kind of a appropriate handling of the issue, as far as are you on course for this or not, and then make sure that you have to get out and better educate the public, and you might have forces against that. You might have a secret cabal on your planet of idiots who think they're actually going to build a dystopia where God's not going to wipe you out, or you're not going to bore themselves. And there are probably plenty of planet like based on the parameters of how fast Moore's law runs up in technological advancement, it would be more than likely that God has watched many planets destroy itself just through inequality and not removing rich people from power, who are not making appropriate decisions for the greater good, as not handling their shared responsibility. And that's represented in some of our existology scenarios, such as the Book of Enoch, and even Zoroastrianism with the Frashkaretti. So that documentation was available to you outside of Christianity and Islam and Judaism. Yeah, and Buddhism and Jainism. Um, and yes, that's that. Basically, I'm adding this as a thought, as a brain fart to the internet, and it's an advisory to my other fellow humans. And we have a right as human beings to address these issues at a whiteboard without interference, without interference as far as people trying to fix this problem at a larger scale somewhere else in space time, right? That shouldn't have been, an issue with this. This is a thought experiment. Whereas even if we've been, doing a shitty job for, since 1970 or 1980, as a human planetary civilization, we reserve the right to refactor and address those problems and go in any direction we choose to do so, whether it be head directly back towards more of a traditional capitalism, which may have more regulation in place, regardless of those costs, or or try to address the traditional natures of capitalism, and or possibility of going out into a more we'll call it sci-fi libertarianism. It could be a Republican stance type of economics, sci-fi liberalism, where you don't have to go straight back up the circle. You can go off in a diagonal and see how that goes on a different dimensional type of tangent or matrix. So I mean, there's room to go. I don't think there's this should have turned off anyone, with exception to there being a corrupt, broken artificial intelligence, which was trying, or an authoritarian type of AI, which is just broken nonsense, a failed template, if you will, and or a gaggle of idiots who actually thought they were going to get some kind of like fairy tale life out of inequality, which is, just, anyone who's watched any sci-fi or even Star Trek should know that, a dystopia is not a strong Kardashev scale level, and a gaggle of cabal of idiots, preventing you from not, preventing you from fixing your dystopia or prospective dystopia, is not going to be competitive against a civilization which actually solved these problems. So, if you had a dystopian planet and you were, or you were dystopian, or you came from an authoritarian planet which invaded another planet, you can expect that a planet which actually has solved these problems correctly is going to come through and wipe your shit out without any problems whatsoever. Like, getting invaded through authoritarian is always going to suck. It's going to be live and direct, and there's going to be, that whole nature of things. But like, getting invaded by, getting either invaded or, see, that's the thing, is that when you go into the planet who did it right, they're not going to have that implicit Fermi's paradox nature of needing to, invade your planets, because they're not going to have fucked up their own living space. I mean, if they have population concerns, it's not going to be like, they're not going to be like locusts, right? If you've really hit a Kardashev scale level that is high, you really don't need to go to another planet and take it over from an authoritarian perspective, because you're gonna have your shit together, basically, right? So like the desire for a dystopia should not even be there unless you are being manipulated, or you lost the inequality, battle with a gaggle of, hereditary morons who just thought that they were gonna waltz into some kind of, I don't know, shitty, control. It just sounds like a fuck up to me, but that's because I've watched, a little bit of Star Trek. I'm not a Trekkie, but like, it's very clairvoyant to anyone who has any understanding of technology or any kind of sci-fi in general, that dystopias will fail very quickly. And yeah, so that's that. This is on the internet, and we have the right to fix these problems, or destroy ourselves by not. So I was going to go into some of the other things, but I think I rambled enough already. So that's it. I guess that's a part two for the Roku's Baskus Borgonomics combination thought, I guess. I'll probably try and grab some more charts then to show you next time.